Dr. James Chen had been working at the Coalition Medical Research Station on Terminus Hub for 3 years, and he still wasn't used to the absolute nature of the non-contact directive. In his medical training on Earth, the first principle was do no harm. But here, among 17 different species, the first principle was do not touch. The non-contact directive was established 60 years ago after a tragic misunderstanding between the Silvari and the Corax species. A Corax diplomat had grabbed a Silvari official's arm in what his species considered a friendly gesture. To the Silvari, the touch was profound violation. Their culture treated physical contact as an intensely intimate act reserved for closest family only. The incident spiraled into a diplomatic crisis that nearly became war. The solution had been absolute prohibition. No physical contact between different species except in the most controlled settings, with layers of protective equipment and formal authorization. Breaking the directive meant immediate expulsion from coalition space, criminal charges, and permanent diplomatic consequences for your entire species. James understood the reasoning, better rigid separation than another near war. But as a doctor, the law gnawed at him. How do you practice emergency medicine when you're legally forbidden to touch patients from other species? Dr. Narisville worked in the adjacent lab, a brilliant Silvari epidemiologist specializing in cross-species disease vectors. They had collaborated professionally for 2 years, always maintaining proper distance, communicating through screens and sanitized data transfers. The Silvari were elegant beings, distinctive pointed ears, skin that shifted through iridescent colors reflecting inner states. Naris's skin was usually calm blues and greens when working, occasionally flashing with excitement over breakthrough data. Lately, though, her colors had been wrong. Flickering patterns that James's cultural training said meant stress or illness. She'd been overworking, barely eating, obsessed with finding treatment for the hemorrhagic outbreak threatening several Silvari colonies. "Dr. Naris, you need rest," James had said through the comm screen yesterday. "Your work's brilliant, but you're pushing too hard." Her skin had flashed with irritated reds. "My people are dying, Dr. Chen. Rest can wait." Now, walking through the lab corridor during gamma shift, James heard it. Something hitting the floor, a choked gasp. He rounded the corner and found Naris collapsed, her body convulsing in seizures, her skin cycling through colors that screamed medical distress. His first instinct was doctor's instinct: assess, stabilize, treat. His second instinct was legal conditioning: do not touch, call for species-appropriate medical response, maintain distance. Naris convulsed again, her head striking the floor. Her breathing was irregular. The color patterns had shifted to grays and blacks, life-threatening crisis. The nearest Silvari medical personnel were 3 levels away. Response time, minimum 5 minutes. Naris didn't have 5 minutes. James made a choice that would change everything. He ran to her. James's hands hit Naris's seizing body, each touch a criminal act, each moment of contact breaking laws designed to prevent exactly this. His medical training took over. Position her to prevent injury, check vitals, administer emergency anti-seizure medication from his kit. She was burning up. Her pulse was erratic. James held her steady, kept her airway clear, monitored breathing while the medication took effect. The seizures began to subside. Her skin colors shifted from death gray to merely distressed purples. Still critical, but stable. That's when security arrived. Security Chief Vexthar, a Kyler whose species took law enforcement very seriously, arrived with 2 officers, all of them staring at James crouched over Naris. "Step away from the Silvari, Dr. Chen. You've violated the non-contact directive." "She was dying," James said, not moving until Silvari medical personnel arrived with proper equipment. Only then did he lift his hands, watching as they took over. "The law doesn't have medical exceptions," Vexthar said, his voice carrying uncertainty. "You'll need to come with me." James watched them rush Naris toward the medical bay, her skin still flickering but breathing regularly. Alive, because he'd broken the most fundamental law in coalition space. "Let's go," he said. "I understand." Detention was sterile and isolated. Through the security feed, James could see chaos unfolding. The Silvari delegation in emergency meeting, their skin cycling through outraged reds and blacks. His own government's representatives looking desperate. coalition officials trying to manage diplomatic crisis. 6 hours later, Vexthar returned. Dr. Narisville is stable. The medical team says without immediate intervention, she would have experienced fatal brain damage within 3 minutes. The seizures were caused by an experimental stimulant she'd been taking to maintain work hours, a dangerous interaction with Silvari neurological chemistry. James felt relief wash over him. She was alive. The Silvari delegation is demanding your expulsion and criminal prosecution, Vexthar continued. Your government is arguing medical necessity. There's going to be a formal hearing. He paused. For what it's worth, doctor, what you did was illegal, but it was also right. Those things don't always align. If I hadn't helped her, she'd be dead, James said. That's alignment enough for me. The hearing was held in the main diplomatic chamber, with representatives from all 17 species present. Everyone knew what James had done. The only question was what to do about it. Ambassador Thelvas, an elderly Silvari official whose skin was the dark bronze of deep seriousness, spoke first. We do not question Dr. Chen's intentions. But the non-contact directive exists because 60 years ago, unauthorized contact nearly led to war. If we allow exceptions, even for medical emergencies, we undermine the foundation that keeps peace between species. Human Ambassador Akhafer argued medical necessity, citing precedents, explaining how emergency medicine requires immediate intervention. Other species weighed in with conflicting perspectives. Then the chamber doors opened, and Dr. Narisville entered, supported by medical staff. Her skin was still pale but cycling through more stable colors. The chamber fell silent. I was dying, Naris said, her voice weak but clear. Medical analysis confirms that without Dr. Chen's intervention, I would have experienced fatal brain damage within minutes. He chose my life over law. She looked at her own delegation. If we punish that choice, what are we saying about what we value? Ambassador Thelvas's skin darkened with anger. We're saying that boundaries matter. That species separation isn't arbitrary cruelty, but careful diplomacy born from tragedy. That individuals don't get to decide when sacred laws don't apply. Then perhaps, Naris said, her skin flashing with defiant colors no one had ever seen from her, our laws need to value life over fear. The chamber erupted. Medical professionals described watching patients suffer while legally forbidden to help. Even younger Silvari officials questioned whether absolute prohibition had gone too far. The debate raged for 2 full days, arguments about law versus ethics, protocol versus preservation of life. Finally, the coalition arbiter announced the decision. Dr. Chen violated the non-contact directive. This violation cannot be excused entirely. However, the coalition acknowledges that medical emergencies represent unique circumstances current law fails to adequately address. Dr. Chen will receive formal reprimand rather than criminal prosecution. More significantly, we are opening a process to draft emergency medical exceptions to the non-contact directive. It was compromise, not perfect, still controversial. But it was acknowledgement that rigid rules sometimes conflict with fundamental values. When James was released, Naris was waiting outside. Her skin cycled through grateful golds and uncertain silvers. You saved my life, she said, and nearly destroyed your career. I'm a doctor. Saving lives is the job. The legal consequences are just consequences. You could have waited for proper Silvari medical response. You'd have been legally protected. And you'd have been dead. That seemed like the worst outcome. Naris was quiet, her skin shifting through thoughtful blues. My people have been so focused on preventing another tragedy that we forgot the original purpose, to protect people. But you can't protect people by letting them die to preserve protocol. Her ears tilted forward. You showed us that. 6 months later, the revised directive included explicit medical emergency exceptions. Medical personnel were authorized to provide life-saving intervention across species lines when delay would cause death or permanent harm. It wasn't perfect. Some species remained deeply uncomfortable with any physical contact, but the absolute prohibition had been tempered by acknowledgement that preserving life mattered more than rigid obedience to fear-driven rules. James continued his research. Naris continued hers. They maintained professional distance most of the time, respecting both law and culture. But when medical necessity required collaboration, they worked side by side with new understanding. If emergency arose again, protocol would now allow response. When reporters asked James about the day he broke Coalition's most sacred law, he gave his straightforward answer. Rules exist to protect people. When a rule prevents protecting someone, the rule needs examination. I'm glad the Coalition was brave enough to have that conversation. Neris, standing beside him with skin shimmering warm appreciation, added, sometimes it takes someone breaking a rule to reveal that the rule itself was broken. Dr. Chen didn't just save my life, he saved us from letting fear dictate our values. Courage isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about doing the right thing even when the law says not to, and trusting that compassion matters more than obedience. The non-contact directive remained in place. Species separation was still the default, carefully maintained. But now there was acknowledgement that absolute rules sometimes fail absolute situations. That sometimes compassion requires breaking protocol. That preserving life matters more than preserving a law that was meant to protect life in the first place.